Good afternoon, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to meet and greet every one of you here to this webinar today. My name is Andy Giri. I am the managing principal at SoftSquare. All of us have been impacted by this COVID-19 virus in some way or other. This pandemic has affected all of our communities, irrespective of nationality, color, or religion. Every country has to deal with this pandemic in their own way, in many, many different ways. And this morning I heard the bad news of the GDP numbers in the United States fall by 32.9% in an annualized basis. That is bad news, but regardless of that, this shall also pass. We are all bracing to return to the workplace in our own style, in our own ways, to save our livelihoods and our economies. But safety is of very, very prime importance when it comes to return to work, right? So we can't risk our lives or come to work, return to work. We have to come back safe. And that is why our practice has chosen to zero in on solving this problem in aligning with Salesforce. Salesforce launched Work.com a couple of months back, and we have been working hard to present it to many of our clients and start a practice area in this specialized area of expertise in the Salesforce ecosystem. The presentation today is about reopening tools and tactics using Salesforce Work.com, particularly the aspects of shift management. And this is part of a long series of webinars that we are going to deliver regarding various aspects of return back to work, including free clinics on the way in between those weeks that we have these webinars. And we want to help the community with technology that could help you have workers come back to work. Next slide, please. We, SoftSquare, have been rated among the top 10 product development partners in the world. Next slide, please. You would see our customer list at this moment. We have a few large enterprise clients, particularly Johnson Controls, Adobe, British American Tobacco through one of our product partners. And we also have specialized expertise building tools for the App Exchange, as well as particularly inspection tools through our alliances with MB&A, as you can see in the logo list. We have expertise around workplace reopening that we are leveraging to launch this webinar. And here we have Dr. Alexander Peter, who is an expert in COVID-19 reopening, as well as a data science specialist, to present the various aspects of shift management to you in this next few minutes. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Giri. Great. Welcome, everyone. So in this series of webinars, last week we focused on employee health screening, and this week we're focusing on part 1 of the shift scheduling component from Work.com. And next week we're going to go more in depth on the shift scheduling component. So this week we're going to go ahead and have an introduction, look through the tool demos, and also we have a very insightful shift management demo from one of our clients. So you're going to see that at the later part of this presentation. Okay, so let's get started. The first order of attention is, why do we need shift scheduling when there's already a shift and a timesheet and a schedule in place? So let's go ahead and take a look at this whole shift management landscape. So when you look at this shift management journey, we started last week with the employee wellness survey. And then once the survey has been sent, there is the facility planning. And then another one that's called an employee availability. And then that response that the employee availability has been sent to the facility planners, there is the shift scheduling and optimization. In this case, we are focused on shift scheduling, and optimization would be next week. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at shift scheduling patterns and see why is it that we really need a tool to do shift scheduling. Now, a standard shift scheduling, like a Kelly shift scheduling, is very straightforward. You have a team and then you can just stagger them across. But when you have thousands of employees, even hundreds of employees, and you have limited space, how do you manage the shifts? Is it 24 hours? Is it 6 hours? And then you have a remaining 3 hours? So that is where this whole module for shift scheduling comes into place. And we're going to take a look at a live demo where you can actually see all this in action. Before we get to that, let's just take a look at the concept of shift scheduling patterns. So let's go ahead and take a look at maybe a few examples here. The DuPont, the Pittman schedule, the Kelly shift schedule, these are common. The 4896 is a military and EMS schedule. So we'll take a look at that as well. And there's a lot of different combinations. There's thousands of these shift schedules. Every company, every public sector, every private sector has their own set of shift scheduling patterns. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-3 pattern. Just take a closer look at that. So here you can see the 4-3 pattern. And if you look at this pattern, you can see that, let's take a look at in depth how it's being read. So you have a team of 6 in the left side. So there's 6 team members. And then the color code is based on the shift. 3rd shift, 1st shift, and 2nd shift. And of course, you can see the staggering of these employees in those shifts, in those team members in those shifts. So if you take a look at this particular one closely, you can see it's a 10-hour shift. And the cycle repeats 21 days. You can see the 21 days at the top, 15 to 21, 8 to 14, 1 to 7. So this is it, not only that the shift scheduling and management optimizes your workforce, it also helps you manage their time more efficiently. So this COVID-19 staggered shift scheduling for social distancing has even made organizations much more efficient. And taking advantage of this shift scheduling module and configuring it in a way that you can optimize your team, that seemed to be an enticing part of deploying something for the short term and looking at the long-term benefits. Okay, so this is one of those. So let me go ahead, and I do have the other ones in the slide, but we're going to go ahead and skip to the interesting one. So you can see as I'm scrolling through, each one of them have a different shift, different schedule, different teams, and different staggering. A restaurant would have a different way to do it. A retail store would have a different way to do it. So schools would have it differently. Universities would have it differently. Some would have a hybrid. So there's all kinds of permutations and combinations that you would have to compensate for. And imagine with 1,000 employees or even 100 employees, if you were to have a combination of 5, then you can see the magnitude of permutations and combinations that you'd have to manage. Again, for certain industries, you need day and night coverage, 24-hour coverage. So those are, some of these rotating shift coverages. So let's take a look at this DuPont coverage. This is a famous one that a lot of the gas stations and other 24-hour facilities apply and use. So if you look at this DuPont schedule, you can see here that it's very similar to the Pittman schedule. So if you are familiar with the Pittman schedule, this would be easy to understand. So you can see that there is 4 teams, and then there is in each of the weeks you have 4 employee slots, and you can see their time zones: 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The reason we're looking at this is because when we do social distancing for a shift scheduling, it's important to see that it's actually already there. And then if you look at Salesforce, they already have implemented these type of solutions using FSL and other scheduling modules. The key is they have taken it and retrofitted it to work with Work.com for COVID-19. So these are already there in the system, and all these configurations is possible. It's just that now we're looking at it from a context of the COVID-19, which not only includes the employees, but it also includes the scheduling of the actual workplace. And that's the new component that we're going to look at. Okay. So I'm going to skip out, and this is the Pittman shift schedule. It's a fairly famous scheduling. So I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at this. Now with the Pittman, it's a fixed schedule that uses 4 crew members, 2 12-hour shifts. Now this is an interesting one because it's a fixed schedule. It's not a variable schedule, and it doesn't move around. And also there is something called 2 days off duty and work 2 contiguous shifts. So you have all these different rules that you have to play, those dashes or the off days. So if you have a very limited space, this is a way to stagger your team and still make that 80-hour schedule. And then the way you do that is you increase the work hours to get that 80 hours. Okay. And again, this is that advantage of the day shift, night shift, and off duty. So taking them off duty would give you that staggered scheduling. And this is a very famous shift scheduling pattern. Okay, let's go ahead and just look at one more. This is the 24, 48-hour shift schedule. This is very straightforward. You have 3 teams, and you just kind of stagger them in that order. And so it's like a traditional Gantt chart. Not very effective. As you can see, if you did it this way, you're not optimizing all your teams, and the hours are also kind of only 24 hours. But if you were to go with the Pittman, you can see how you're really optimized. And if you can see this even further in the DuPont, you can even optimize it even further. You can have so many hours. So we're just optimizing the time and space. Okay, now that we've gone through this shift scheduling patterns, let's go ahead and turn the presentation on to Sriram. He is going to help us with understanding how this is being actually used in a very complex environment. Mr. Andy, could you help us with an introduction for our guest speaker today?
Sure. So to put things in perspective, you've seen briefly how Alex demonstrated or explained how shift management works. When we started this practice towards Work.com, way before that, we've been dealing with several clients, particularly in the space of employee field worker placements, right? So field worker scheduling, optimization of their schedules is part of ServiceMax, as well as part of Salesforce Field Service Lightning. And we've been practicing this area, and we've realized that COVID-19 reopening is not only the primary objective of Work.com, we could also leverage this for mines. And that is why we have added to the agenda our good friend and HR specialist and SME in that space of mining, Mr. Sriram Sampath Kumar. He's going to present to this audience the various aspects of mining and how we can fit field service in the mining domain. Welcome. Here you go, Sriram.
Thank you, Andy. Can everyone hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Andy, for the introduction. Good afternoon, all. My name is Sriram Sampath Kumar. I'm also known as Ram. Just before we start, I wanted to give some context as to my background that will also give you. Can we go back to the previous slide, please? Can we go back to the previous slide, please? Yeah, thank you.
We moved to the previous slide. You want to go back to the...
okay, thank you, Alex.
Okay, you want to be in this slide, right? Okay, got it. Go ahead.
So just to, yes, thank you. Just to give you a context, I've been in the mining industry for the past 15 years, and I have developed underground gold mines in the Canadian and Russian Arctic, and managed mining talent across the globe for the largest gold mining company. So have can understand I have extensively worked on mining exploration, construction, and mining operations, and extensively worked on particularly on rostering. Now we call it scheduling, employee safety, and their wellness. So from the context of software and involving Salesforce Work.com, which we're talking about today, from a shift scheduling context, keeping employees safe during these unprecedented times requires leaders to deploy coordinated management and communication plans focused on safety and efficiency. With Work.com's new shift management solutions, which is the topic of the day today, actually organizations can adapt their workplace capacity to new requirements and policies, because companies are scrambling to figure out what should be our new requirement, what should be our new policies, taking into account remote working and now turning to work, reopening of offices and workplaces. So then the next one is enable managers to easily prioritize specific roles, functions, or projects using the power of scheduling optimization. And demo will be shown later part of the presentation. And the third important part is that allow employees to select availability, which we will also talk about a little more in detail, and enable planners to match the shifts. Okay, given this, I do want to share an interesting story, and it's a real story. I was talking to a mining buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago, who manages a mid-sized copper mine operations outside of Canada. There, their mine site is located not far from local communities, which means that it's not close to the city or town. There are some communities, local communities, where the major chunk of workforce reside. So the employees actually in that setup commute to workplace by company buses on a daily basis. And COVID struck, and like anyone else, this company confronted with a lot of these challenges with the lockdown and risk assessment, risk management being DNA of miners. The mining company actually looked through various options, and they wanted to make sure the productivity is going on. So they agreed with the 200 employees of theirs that they will all temporarily move over to mine site, where the company made necessary arrangements like accommodation, food, and so forth. So everything sounds good and going well for 4 weeks, and for end of 4th week, 2 of their employees unfortunately tested positive to COVID-19. Guess also what happens? Employees many employees actually are also starting to become anxious and feel fatigue and homesick, because these people are actually commuting on a daily basis, as I mentioned earlier, by company provided buses. So they see their family when they get back home every night. The operations manager now faces a new challenge. What they thought 4 weeks ago will work best for the company as well as the employees didn't work, it didn't prolong too long. So he ended up consulting the regional vice president, who located in a city not far from the place, maybe several hundred kilometers, and they quickly had to respond to the situation. So they ended up making certain alternative arrangements whereby my friend had to establish health screening within the communities, which means that they don't have to wait for the employees to come to site and get them tested upon entering the site. Instead, they made a smart plan. They will test the employees in the communities before they board the buses. So which means they ensure that the employees are ready, willing, and available for the work for the day. Then they also added more buses. You know why? In the same capacity, of you're 50, you can't travel during COVID time. So you have to ensure we maintain social distance. So applying more buses also ensure that they were able to, meet the distancing requirements during the commute. So what we learned at SoftSquare is that how important for the leaders to address things like capacity management, shift patterns, and scheduling, employee availability, shift arrival windows. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Yep, it's switched to the next slide. The roster and mining. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we at SoftSquare understand that mine sites are often located in remote locations. Obviously, it would be nice to have them all in the town, like we have our banks and IT companies and technology companies and startups, but you can't have a mine site inside your town or city. Administrative offices are usually located in the large cities or nearby communities with access to regulators, stakeholders, training centers, banking, etc. So putting that in the context of Canada, in Canada, you often will find them in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, places like Yellowknife, which is a smaller town in Northwest Territories, and places like that. So there, they also may have near mine communities. And also important to note, we also at SoftSquare, while we are trying to understand the uniqueness of operating and managing remote locations, and we also understand well that there are various stages of mining. So when you look at a mining value chain, the very early stage, explorers, we call them geologists, they go out and look for deposits. It could be mineral, it could be gold, silver, copper, nickel, whatnot, right? And so during that period, there will be one type of roster, right? Still a mining company, but they have a different set of skills to work on site. Then once the geologists identify the required amount of deposit and contents in the resource and identify reserves, they put together feasibility and then they start the project. So project is nothing but constructing a mine site. During the project phase, actually, the number of geologists reduce on site, and a lot of those construction employees and EPCM contractors in large numbers come in varied, type of rosters, because a geotech contractor versus environmental consultant versus ground support engineers, they will all have different type of rosters. So all that need to be managed during the construction phase. Then comes, once the mine site is completed, construction is completed, handed over to operations. That's when the smooth, steady state operation starts. This period, oftentimes, if it is a remote location like the places where I worked, in the Canadian Arctic, we do 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So just to give you a sense of the kind of complexity we at SoftSquare had to handle. So next slide, please.
Sir, you're in the next slide.
Thank you, Alex. So as we discussed in the last couple of slides, you probably got a fair bit of sense as to what kind of organization structure that exists and employee locations. And we also at SoftSquare looked at the kind of premises and their attributes each of these locations will have. So there is a clear distinction between regional office, admin office versus remote mine site. So typically regional offices will be located in a multi-storied building, oftentimes in Toronto, downtown, Bay Street. You will have, tons of mining companies, sitting in type of attribute, you have to be, recognizing it. When it comes to remote sites, they may have, they will have, camp for the people to reside during their shifts. canteen to feed them, site administrative offices, where it will be indoor predominantly, still an office, main office. It could be single storied, containerized, or double. Normally, you won't see more than 2 stories at the mine site. And then you also have warehouses, maintenance workshops. In very complex situations where I worked in the near the Arctic Ocean, we used to have our own airstrips. We used to land our planes, charter planes on the frozen lakes during winters, and during summers, we used to have all-weather airstrips. And we also used to bring a lot of these consumables, including diesel for entire year to run the power at the camp, and food, dry food, and camp materials, whatnot. We used to bring by barges, and we used to have only 13 weeks in a year to bring all this. So we have jetty, basically a small port, and obviously you have mine site where people work. So, and basically what it tells us is that we have to recognize the attributes of the work location, number one, and the type of premises each location will have, and then type of employee positions. Even at mine site, we can't assume that all of them will be working at the open site environment. We do have our safety staff, most of the time sit in the admin buildings, HR, some HR function, some accounting function will also be present. So they will have an office building. So we need to clearly understand their kind of positions that exist even at the mine site, and how they impact the way one manages the shifts. So with this, I would like to hand this over back to Alex. So thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Sriram. This is very good. So as you can see, when you looked at his presentation, one of the areas that of focus was the types of workforce, admin, FIFO, near mine residents. These are parameters that you can use to prioritize. So if we were to kind of take a look at, back to this whole shift management journey. So some of the things that we need to really focus on is what we need to focus on is let me go ahead and bring up this component here. So our sales engineer is going to actually go through and give us a live how it's actually done in the application. So we're going to actually walk through and see how it's really running in the application. Also, what we would like to do is just kind of go through the framework to a certain extent. How does all this fit in to the bigger scheme of Salesforce? Work.com. So let me go ahead and what we did is we looked at, in a broader sense, we looked at prioritizing the roles and functions. And that's where, when you looked at how you have the different employees in your organization, how do you prioritize them? HR versus technical support versus customer service. So you want to go ahead and kind of prioritize them first and give them a weighting, so that you can say this particular position has a weightage of 10, and a technical support has a weightage of 90. So you would have to rate them in a way that the system can use that to automatically assign. So that's the kind of the very early stages of this whole shift scheduling, is prioritizing the roles and functions. And the kind of the second phase to that would be enabling your employees to select the availability. So you can go ahead and send out this, think of it like a survey. You send this out and the employees choose their schedule. That's as you can see, the employee availability, number 3. Now, once you've done this employee availability, now you know who is ready to come to work. Now it's a matter of matching the location and the capacity of that location with the employees available to come to work, while taking into consideration the priority roles and functions. And that's, what it is called automatically matching the availability to the shift. And that's what Work.com really does well, is it provides this engine to help you automatically manage these three areas of focus, which is the three major areas of focus when you look at shift management. Is you got the facility, you got the employee, and now you got the capacity constraints. So those are the three you have to kind of balance and match. And that's what we're going to take a look at and see how we can do this in Work.com, Salesforce, Work.com reopening initiative. So last week we looked at how the wellness survey works. You send out an email or a link where each employee can go through a set of questions to make sure that they're ready to come back to work. That's just an indicator that, yes, this employee is available for work. And then we go into facility planning to make sure that that workspace is ready for business. And then after we do that, we sent a note again back to the employee asking them, what schedules would you like to come? And we give them options so they can choose. Now, once they have chosen their option, that response goes into this whole shift scheduling engine that does this optimization, looks at the priorities, looks at the capacity, and then assigns that employee to that location. And as you saw, the shift scheduling pattern, it looks pretty straightforward, but it's not. Every organization has a very complex shift scheduling pattern because there's also dependencies between different groups, and there's a chain reaction. So compensating for the chain reaction and building a very complex system like this, it's quite daunting. And we're going to take a look at some of the components, and then we're going to go right into the application and dig deeper. So we're at the 30-minute mark. We're going to take like a 1-minute break while we're setting up for the application. So it's about 8:33. So we are going to come back at 8:40. So until then, we're going to start setting things up. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, please put that in the chat, and our engineers are looking at it, and then we will get you an answer at the end of the call. So we're going to start setting up and getting ready to present to you Work.com's shift scheduling module. Mr. Andy, if you have anything to say in the meantime, we have about 6-7 minutes. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Andy. And in the meantime, we'll start setting up our screens. Kanmani, are you ready? Let me go down share so you can share the screen.
Sure, Alex.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Andy, you can continue. Go ahead.
Take a moment to introduce Sean Parker, one of our key partners, product managers. The partner's name is MB&A. They make a product called Exam. We are a key component of their product development team. And I'm absolutely delighted to introduce to all of you Sean Parker. Sean?
Thanks, Andy. You surprised me there. Appreciate the introduction. It's definitely a pleasure doing business with you.
Okay.
In fact, at the beginning of the call, I was on the I had to get on Skype with Ram and Karthik.
Thank you. Thank you. I know there is also possibilities to align in the federal government space because you do the enforcement product.
Okay, great. So we're just prepping up. Kanmani, if you're ready, we can start sharing the screen. Thank you.
Sure, Alex. I'll be sharing my screen. Alex, could you see my screen?
Yes, Kanmani. Yeah, listen.
Thank you. So, Alex, shall we start then?
Okay, great. So this is what we covered last week, which was the Work Center from Work.com. And the Work Center is kind of a centralized dashboard that shows you what is going on with the reopening initiative in your organization. So as you can see, you have different locations. Some of them are open, some of them are hard closed, soft closed, reduced density. These are different indicators to say, the place is safe. the place is not safe. Could you go into the list view, please? Just click on the list view on that. So you can see here, there are 23 open, 11 hard close, and soft close, and reduced density. So there are different definitions for these that we covered last week, and we can always get back to you and give you more details, or we can even send probably the recorded webinar from last session so you can see the definitions. Now on the middle block, you can see where it says wellness status by location. So as you can see here in Washington versus Boston, you can see the survey results for that day. So essentially, one of the very early tasks of this reopening initiative is to send out a survey through email or through a survey tool, just to find out, if your employees are okay, are they ready to come back to work? And that's the survey that's here. And it's also, the survey is kind of like a consent, asking them if they're ready to come back to work. If not, what do they need? Do they need gloves? Do they need masks for security officers? So there's a lot of different aspects to this, the wellness status survey. Okay, now you can see on the right side, it's interesting, wellness status itself. You have 37% of your staff ready to come back to work. 25% is on remote work only, and 20% unavailable, and 17 unknown. This is a performance dashboard. You can go back, HR health officer or your team can go back and find out, hey, what's going on with this 17% unknown, and then kind of track and optimize your workforce. Okay, let's go on to the next one, please. Thank you. Okay, so now that we're looking at this is the facility hierarchy. Go ahead and open that up, please. So the way shift management works is you have to first set up your office space and assign a limit to how many employees can be in that floor. And that's what we're doing here with facility hierarchy. And as Mr. Andy can tell you, this was repurposed from an existing module in Salesforce. And that's why some of the terminology may not directly correlate to health screening or reopening initiative, but it's kind of built in, it's being reused from FSL, right, Mr. Andy?
Yes, field service lightning.
Yeah, so SoftSquare has already worked on a field service lightning project. We understand that area really well, and this is just a month-old tool. But when we look at all the inner workings and the components, it just looks like some of the fields have been renamed or repurposed for this function. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. So the facility planning, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Go ahead, okay, we choose SoftSquare. And you can choose the week. And as you can see, that data that we put in under the facility hierarchy just flows right through here. And now we're going to go ahead and start looking at the number of elevators, elevator capacity, average round trip time. So all these parameters can be configured. See, recommended employee arrival time, 5 people every 15 minutes. This looks like an overkill. When you look at it, it looks like, oh, we're so precise. But if you think about it, if you look at the metro train system, or if you look at a bus scheduling system, they go with a similar model, right? So this is just a matter of we're becoming more time-bound and just kind of using it in a different context. You're actually applying those strict rules to your workforce. Go ahead. And this is the add facility plan section. And you can see here, reduce occupancy percentage, and then you can put in the work type, back to work, and you can choose the days. Remember, we looked at all those complex scheduling. This tool is designed to automate that scheduling for you. And the first step is to set the rules, and this is what we're doing, setting up the rules here for the staggered arrival. Okay, this is great. So as you can see, we have gone through and started adding these staggered arrivals. Let's go ahead and move on to the next screen. What I would like to focus on next is the shift planner, as you can see here. And then once you click that generate shift, this is where the algorithm goes out and generates the shift. So once you have set up this particular component, now you can go in and do the capacity, shift capacity. Go ahead.
Yes, Alex. Now we are going to send a notification to our employee. So for the period of what we are aligned as shift management. So I'm going to send it to for the week August 10th to 14th. This would be my end date. So when the employee has to be response. So I'm going to set a due date here. So let me select the shift days. So as we configured in the earlier screen, only we have chosen for the weekdays. So I'm selecting the weekdays here. I'll be given next. So now the employees will receive the notification into their mobile. Once they receive the notification, so they have the flexibility to choose if they're not available on the particular day, they have a flexibility to uncheck the particular checkbox on the corresponding day, and he can send the response to the employers. So based on their response, we are going to schedule the shift management. So this is a Gantt chart. Here only we are going to play around with, as Alex said, algorithms are going to play around based on the employee response. I'm going to optimize this. So this kind of screen we will be covered on next demo. So this is quite interesting, and we'll be walked through with a detailed demo on this on next week. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Alex.
Thank you. So great. Thank you, Kanmani. That's our sales engineer. She's been, working very immensely and deeply on a lot of these components. And the team has been also looking at different aspects to see how we can use those shift patterns that I showed you, the DuPont, the Pittman, trying to see how we can start creating these shift pattern templates that can be repurposed and reused in this module. So as you can see, there is that component here where an email is sent out to the employees asking them what time they would like to come in. And as they choose that, and we click that optimize, the system goes through the entire thousands or 600 employees and goes through a computation and tells you where there is conflict, where there's a priority that's the same priority for two different departments or two different groups. So all those aspects we're going to look at next week. So next week, we're going to continue on with this view, which is the shift scheduling and optimization, and looking at the individual planning and see how everything flows, the day-to-day operational. Think of it like a day-to-day operational dashboard. So that is kind of the working of the application from a shift management perspective. As you can see, we started with the survey, and then we went into the employee, and then we went into the availability of the shifts and service appointments. Then we went ahead and sent that request to the employees, and then we got the response back, and then we are actually creating the shift schedule. And then at the end of this, we sent a time card out to the employee that says, hey, you're ready to come back to work. Now that could be customized to fit into the badging system, so you can only get in based on that time, or it could be sent as a roster to the security officer where they can actually see when the employees have to come in and leave. So that is the full scope of shift management. As we move into remote work, on-site and off-site, and managing your staff virtually, having a system like this, having this pattern and having this consistency can bring some amount of optimization and efficiency in your organization, not only from a social distancing perspective, but also from extreme efficiency. You can see how your staff is really well staggered out and managed across your organization. When you're a big institution like the Smithsonian, where you have multiple museums and 6,000 employees, or you're a federal government, or even universities. Think about universities and professors and students. How creatively you can use this application to optimize the time and space. On a side caveat note, if you think about this is already done perfectly by Airbnb and Uber. They manage and utilize unused resources very efficiently. So essentially, we're just bringing that business model to your business, really. And I don't think of this as a tool for just reopening. Think of this as a tool to really optimize your organization to the next level. If your employees are remote and you have multiple employees and you have connections and dependencies and you need to prioritize them, I think this is a fabulous way to do it. And next week, we're going to actually show you a really good case study from one of our clients where they have optimized and improved efficiency both in the amount of hours and also in cost by using shift management. So saying that, I would like to turn it to Mr. Andy for the concluding remarks. In the meantime, I would like to take this time to thank our marketing manager, Sridhar, and our development team members who worked on this. They put a lot of time and energy talking to clients, asking them permissions to share some of this demo materials. And as Mr. Giri was mentioning, some of our clients are here. So we would like to thank our customers and clients for being with us and sharing this opportunity. For us, we feel like this is something that'll just enhance your organization to the next level from a very operational and strategic perspective.